Welcome to Cordkillers Reckoning. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we're just trying to find out how to watch what we want, where we want, whenever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Brian, where's the good stuff?
Oh my God, I wish I knew these days. Yeah, I mean, I did like Dune 2. Made me want to go back and watch the David Lynch version, but that's fine.
Wait, watching Dune 2 from Denis Villeneuve made you want to go back and watch the David Lynch version?
Yeah, because you Tom.
Yeah.
You always remember your first. And
true.
Like I've experienced Dune in so many like first the David Lynch, then actually reading the book, then experiencing the PC CD-ROM version of the game that included clips of the thing, then experiencing the most people
TV miniseries?
No. Most people don't know that the beginning of real-time strategy games was Dune 2. Dune 2 preceded Warcraft, and I remember playing in 1993. I remember playing Dune 2 and thinking, "Oh my God, if I could only do this, but play against another person." Warcraft happens, and then all of real-time strategy happens, and so I have a deep affection for it. So
gotcha.
The latest iteration is very, very good, and it made me want to go all the way back to the beginning.
I see. No, that makes a lot of sense. It makes me want to go on a supply run.
Future events such as these will affect you in the future.
So Variety has an article titled "Apple's Box Office Misfires. Are Napoleon, Flower Moon, Argyle worth it?" Question mark. They obviously use a question mark because they're grammatically correct there over at Variety. Supposedly, Apple spent around $700 million to make Napoleon, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Argyle, all three. So totaling up the cost for all three, it's $700 million. Those three together at the box office worldwide brought in $466 million. Now, from a purely theatrical standpoint, that's a lot of gap to make up with ancillary revenue. Like a lot of times, a movie may not make its money back at the box office, but syndication and merchandising, whatever, will bring it back. But that's not how Apple looks at these. I think, personally, Apple would be justified in viewing this as paying around $240 million or $80 million each, because that's how much they quote unquote lost on each movie on average, for lifetime exclusive rights to carry these movies on its streaming service. Apple's cash rich. $80 million is a lot of money, but it's nothing to Apple. And if it gets people to Apple TV Plus, then that brings people into the marketplace for Apple One, which is iCloud and fitness and all this other stuff. That gives Apple TV Plus a lot of free marketing buzz because everybody talks about, is it going to win an award? Spoiler, it didn't. It didn't win any. It got nominated for a lot of Oscars, but it didn't win any. So I don't know, Brian. I'm saying it may feels pricey, but not outlandish.
Well, so let me push back a little bit and also agree at the same time. I totally agree that I think you and I would be side by side in believing that eventually every single cent they've invested is going to come back to them, right? Like in pure monetary terms.
Well, maybe not. Like, I don't think they expect it to come back as profit. Do you?
Look, turns out the future goes for a long time, Tom. I think I think the long tail. I think Chris Anderson wrote a whole book.
Okay, I see where you're going, which is like when you say like I get it. You're saying every cent they're spending, they expect to be worth it. In other words, that money will be made up in some other way down the road.
And also in the currency of money. But more importantly, and I think this is what we're teasing at right here, is the intangible currencies of credibility, of respect, of prestige,
That's why I paused when you said they're going to make every cent back. I'm I don't know if they care.
I wanted to begin by reminding people that on a long enough time, what did they say in Fight Club? On a long enough timeline, the survival rate of everyone goes to zero, right? On a long enough timeline, the profitability rate of every project eventually becomes positive because eventually enough people see the thing or whatever. So setting that aside, the currencies that the intangible currencies that we just talked about, I believe were a worthy investment, especially for a player in the over-the-top service market of Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, if you told me Apple spent $40 million to acquire Scorsese's Oscar-nominated film, and then spent $40 million telling people that it had Scorsese's Oscar-nominated film, and got 40 million subscribers worldwide to sign up on an ongoing basis to pay $5 a month for Apple TV Plus, and that most of those people will stick around for 10 years, I'd say, boy, that sounds like a good deal for Apple.
Well, and there's a temptation to say, well, that's stupid, but those intangibles, like for example, I don't know, like when you show up here at the HQ, there's a bunch of trophies. Why am I doing that? Why am I dedicating all this space or whatever? Because if anybody ever gets on an airplane and comes here to participate in what we're doing, then by goodness, I want them to know in their hearts that, yes, you are great for having done this. By the way, what are you holding?
Oh, this is just a trophy for best news web series of the year 2012. You know, just happened to
I'm not even going to push back on that. I'm not even going to make a joke about that.
I was going to make a joke of like, I don't care about trophies while holding the trophy, but then you know what? It actually works better this way. Like, yeah, no, having a trophy, you can say it's silly, but as soon as you have one, people go, oh, wow, you won the trophy, right? Like it's a difference maker, even if we don't want it to be. It works on us.
Well, the way I phrase it is that a lot of people are like, I want to win, or I want to be good, or I want to be
the king,
worshipped or whatever. I'm like, nobody cares about that. It's like nobody wants to be the sucker. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
You and I watched that Radiolab episode where they did the Prisoner's Dilemma game show, and Jad says nobody wants to be the sucker. And the moment you walk in and you see a bunch of trophies, then you know for a fact that you're not the sucker. And this is basically insurance, is the way I think of it, of Apple making sure that, hey guys, no matter what, you're not the sucker. We're not another fly-by-night, over-the-top experiment.
Yeah, your $5 was well spent, becoming a subscriber. Do you think anybody else does this? Do we see the calculus change at companies that have long established movie studios? Does Universal do this with Peacock? Does Disney do this with Disney Plus or Hulu?
So there are certain things that the look changes. For example, when you and I met in person, I had the crazy Liberty spikes, right? I was looking like Guile from Street Fighter 2 and so on. In real life, that was a good look because every time I went into any room, everybody suddenly was like, this guy wants to talk and has a story, right? And however, the authority granted by YouTube caused a lot of people to kind of freak out and be all like, who's this jerkbag, So in the example that you just gave, I would say that Universal already has too much authority. Like right now, Apple TV Plus is enough of an underdog that they can be like, hey man, we're just the cool underdogs trying to invest in cool stories. Whereas if Universal were to do it, it might look like, oh, somebody's losing their mojo. I don't know if any of that made sense to you, but
no, it does. It makes a lot of sense because Universal is out there being judged by Variety, which, you know, is trying to judge Apple this way in this article, by do they make their money back? That's the way the industry works. Tons of people inside Universal, inside Disney, inside Paramount think the same way. And it's going to be really difficult for them to go, wait, it's okay to lose money? Like, I guess we lose money on prestige indie films sometimes, and maybe that's the wedge in, but most of the time they're not going to want to think that way. So yeah, actually now I've talked myself into they will be more limited than Apple and say, yeah, we can lose money on something that gets us prestige, and then they'll be bolstered more than they are now by financial numbers that go, well, it's not some nebulous idea that if you get nominated for an Oscar, it makes your studio look good, which is what it was in the past. Now we can point to the streaming subscriptions that were bolstered by it.
I think it's really interesting that you use the phrase lose money, because I do believe that everybody on the outside is thinking in those terms, but secretly on the inside, I am certain they're thinking of it as spending money. It's like, we're going to spend this money to purchase the position of being the underdog. Like when I talked about lose
Apple?
money,
I was talking about Universal and Paramount, not Apple. Because I agree with you. My whole setup there was Apple is seeing this as spending money, but I think it's harder for the existing studios to see it as spending money, don't you?
100%. But I guess I don't know. Long story short, I just feel like there are oftentimes people make moves, studios make moves that they intentionally obscure their real mission. And there are many, many, many currencies that maybe they don't acknowledge in public.
The other part of this story, it's a separate story, but I think it feeds into this, is Apple just added about 50 movies to Apple TV Plus. I'm not sure what window this is, but they are only there for a month. So, you know, it could be the like in-flight movie window or something like that, because that's kind of what it looks like. Like, it's a weird collection of rights that are available for them. Captain Phillips, Con Air, Edge of Tomorrow, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like, it's all over the place as far as types of movie, era of movie. Star Trek Beyond, Spider-Man 2. Like, they basically bought some 1 month long window, and they're putting it on Apple TV Plus, which is something they haven't done before. Up until now, everything on Apple TV Plus is something that Apple owned, something that Apple made and licensed perhaps, but it was Apple. It wasn't syndicated. It wasn't coming from somewhere else. So it's interesting to see them do that to try to also keep people. I feel like Napoleon spending money on Flower Moon, Argyle, that's to bring people in. And then something like this, you know, let's add 50 movies is a way to kind of help keep people who are waiting for Severance to come back or something.
Well, doggone it. Normally, you and I have different takes, but in this case, thanks for stealing my take, you guy.
It just means it's a good take. Yeah.
No, I actually think you're 100% right. I think that they invested in quality and prestige, and in the hopes that people will feel good about subscribing, and then once they get there, it's a little bit like throwing a party, right? It's like there are two moves. There's pitching the party, telling everyone there's going to be a great party. How great is this party? But then when they show up, the one thing you must not do is have an empty arena. You must have people partying, and this is them first investing in the one thing, and then second investing in the other.
It is a change for Apple, though, which has relied on Apple TV Plus to be like, you can't get it anywhere else. So they're sort of tacitly admitting by doing this, or at least trying it. We'll see if they keep doing it, that it's okay to have a few things that you can get anywhere else. And that makes sense to me, honestly, because if you look at the Apple TV interface, one of the things they do that no one else does is they mix the service with the platform in a way that even Amazon, I don't think, does on Fire TV OS. When you are in Apple TV, it's actually kind of hard to tell what's Apple TV Plus and what they're just recommending based on other apps that are installed, like Hulu and Disney Plus. And so if they can be like free movies, it doesn't stick out as much.
So, okay, if we're going to follow on the party analogy, imagine like every one of those movies that you mentioned that they licensed for a month I was like, that's a good movie. That's another good movie. That's another good movie or whatever. So now imagine all of them as attractive people, AKA extras. So if they're going to spend the money to invite people into their party, they want people to come in and see so many attractive extras.
Yeah. I could see it as hors d'oeuvres too, right? As snacks, where you're like, you're not going to eat all of them, but boy, you're at the right party when you see that spread and you're like, whoa, look at all these drinks. Look at all these food. This is amazing. Yeah.
I think we're like 4 metaphors deep right now.
Yeah. I'm also hungry. And I can't afford to buy food anymore, Brian, because we don't get paid to do this.
You know what? That's been an unfortunate decision that we made from the very beginning. Is I remember when Cordkillers Reckoning started, the two of us, we made one solemn vow. We said, you know what? No money.
Yeah.
We said we shouldn't get paid for any of this. We shouldn't be enabled to do more of it. Mm-hmm. It should be a labor of pain. Mm-hmm. And Tom, I regret that.
Yeah.
I would like to rescind that decision.
There's a movement that's pushing in that direction. Called patreon.com/cordkillers, where people insist, no, I want you to keep making shows. I want you to not fall over and pass out from a lack of snacks. We want you to be at that party with the beautiful spread. And therefore, we will support the show just because we find value in it.
Yeah, I remember us thinking about this, and I remember thinking like, yeah, but what's the value they're going to get, Tom? Like, they got to get something out of this.
That's why we went 4 metaphors deep, Brian, because we want to give them that value.
Head on over to patreon.com/cordkillers. Keep us loud, live, and independent. Some of you guys, long timers, know that we used to be on a network, but now we're independent. Please support independent creators.
Yeah, indeed. And specifically these two. It is time for the search party. And we're out here looking for stuff to watch. Brian, there is a trailer for Fallout coming to Amazon Prime Video. We, with every release they give, we check in with Brian, who beloves this franchise. Beloves, is that a verb? I don't care. He loves this franchise so much he beloves it. Brian, how do you feel about the latest Fallout trailer?
Tom, how many times have I admonished everybody who listens to us about not believing in somebody who wants to re-envision something awesome? Don't believe that something you love will be taken away from you just because it's not the same.
It's like a hit song.
You remember. Tom.
Yes.
Some of this.
You're scared, aren't you, Brian?
I am. Like as much as I have been the guy that is like, don't be scared. I'm so scared because
you're looking at that man in the mirror.
I'm asking him to change his ways. Okay. Speaking plainly, like I deeply, I think I'm telling the truth in both versions of this. I think I was telling the truth when I was like, hey guys, don't be scared. Like, just because you love a thing and somebody tries to do another, let them go for it, right? I also think I'm telling the truth when I say that, Tom, I was in 8th grade when I played Wasteland. That was eventually the inspiration for Fallout 1, which I discovered when I was working at Rockwell Semiconductors, which was the inspiration for Fallout 2, Fallout 3, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas. That fusion of cheery 1950s Cold War era optimism, the vision of an atomic age, meshed with the harsh reality of the wasteland, blended in with the visuals from, of all things, I don't know if you know this, Tom, but we've talked about A Boy and His Dog. Don Johnson and Jason Robards were in it. Telepathic Dog or whatever. Like, there are scenes from Fallout that are straight up extracted from that movie, like the 1950s car half buried in there. When I watched this trailer, I don't know that I've ever been more emotionally confused watching a trailer, because thing I love, and they seem to be doing it right. However, it's being produced and directed by people who you and I have spent a long time mocking, the team behind Westworld, who we know make excellent visuals, but also have a tendency to screw things up, or a track record of, in my opinion, screwing things up. On top of that, there's Baby Billy, not only as the first face on there, Walton Goggins, but also again as a ghoul. And on top of that, there was another moment that
Toast.
God, that was the worst one. That was the one that got me. That was the one that upset me the most. That was the one that made me so confused. Tom,
yeah, Matt Berry's voice coming out of there, he got one syllable out. And I'm like, Matt Berry.
Yep. Like, he's like, I'm going to murder you.
I'm going to murder you. Yeah.
Look, roll the dice. Who's to say whether it'll be good or not? But I think in the 15 years that we've been doing this show, Tom, I don't think I've ever been more scared for somebody to screw up something that I've loved. And the analogy that I thought of was, it's like I on my watch, I wear a Pip-Boy, and everybody, when they notice it, they compliment me, and it's very cool. And I thought, what if I had a tattoo? If I had a tattoo, I would be as afraid for this franchise as anybody else would. So that was a very long way to say that despite all of my advice, I'm finally on edge, and I would love to hear,
you've got the emotions.
If anybody else is on edge, hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com.
All right. Well, let's change a pace from talking about something that Brian finds beloved, and let's talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is also beloved, but at least you've tried a couple episodes, and so far you're happy with them. Good news in that vein. Avatar: The Last Airbender renewed for 2 more seasons at Netflix, and that will conclude the story. So they're going to match the animation. 3 seasons. That's it.
I think that's a smart play because because they're tracking one for one the original story. I did watch the first episode. We've talked about that before. I'm still trying to get the rest of the family to watch it. But I think they are resistant But I think they will relax once they know, hey, they got renewed for 2 more seasons. So
yeah, don't worry. It's going to
go
go all the way to the end.
yeah. By the way, I don't know if we talked about this last week, but I did not realize that Dave Filoni was one of the co-creators of the whole thing.
Yeah, no, and free from lore restrictions. Well, kind of. I mean, different lore restrictions that he usually works on. Our flag means death is dead. Creator David Jenkins says it's, quote, the end of the road. They were allowed by Warner Brothers Discovery to take it somewhere else after Max said they wouldn't pick it up. They said they had some very nice meetings with some very complimentary folks who said they have made a very great TV show, but nobody wanted to sign up for another season. So that's it.
Let me tee this up for you. I suspect personally that they didn't try very hard to find a new home to keep it going. And I don't know how much of that would be pandemic related or just like, momentum on other projects. Like we've talked about the fact that Taika Waititi is working on a Time Bandits revival and all that stuff. What is your take? Is it a case that just nobody liked it, or is it a case that they pretty much did what they intended to do?
It sounded to me like they tried hard. They tried harder than most. Most people would have taken the cancellation at Max and gone home. It sounds like David Jenkins wanted to tell the fans, look, we did. We took meetings. We talked to people. And I think it's reasonable to assume that in a world where the purse strings are tightening, budgets are not open, that it's going to be harder to find other people willing to import a series unless it's massively popular. And as much as we love Our Flag Means Death, I don't get the sense that it was massively popular. It's niche popular, and that's not enough right now when everybody's trying to consolidate and spend less. And so, yeah, it tracks for me that they would have people go, man, I wish we could. If you'd called us 2 years ago, we definitely would have, but money's not there right now for this.
That's a really good position, and I think I'll back your play. It feels like our Flag Means Death is like the Mumford and Sons or the Shins of TV shows. Like, they're great, just not,
Everybody says they'll go see them, right? But only some people go see them. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of, Max is going to make a season 2 of House of the Dragon. Does anyone out there remember Game of Thrones House of the Dragon?
Oh my God.
That was a show a few years ago on Max. They're bringing it back for season 2, and they gave it a month, not a date, oddly, but House of the Dragon season 2 will premiere in June.
Are we going to see a full-on faceplant from the House of George R.R. Martin?
That's to be determined, right? Like, it's a long break. The momentum is gone. I don't hear people saying Game of Thrones.
That
can't
buzz
wait for
on the
more.
street is not like when I walk around like, hey man, you hear about Game of Thrones? Yeah, I did. No, not Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, when Game of Thrones comes up, most people go, oh, you mean the one with the disappointing last season? Like that is kind of how people talk about it. So House of the Dragon actually overcame that in season 1. And I think it won some respect from people, but not so much that everybody's out there like, I've been dying for this to come back. So it'll be interesting if they can get that momentum back, especially in a world where people are more distracted. It feels like it's harder to have a hit than it used to be too.
Well, and there's a temptation to believe like we all want to just like settle once and for all, like, oh, Steven Spielberg, he's the guy who makes the awesome things. And then we just go watch whatever that is or whatever. But the truth is, it's okay if not everything is a hit from the George R.R. Martin universe.
Yeah, sure. Finally, Netflix pursuing another live sports option. It is going to stream a live fight between YouTube star Jake Paul and retired boxing legend Mike Tyson. The match will take place July 20th live at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, if you want to visit in person, or you can stream it on Netflix.
Tom, you know I'm a magician, right?
Yes, yeah, and a YouTube star.
Yeah. So I tend to listen for wiggle words, and I noticed that you called it a live fight. As far as I know, fighting isn't a legitimate sport. Because when I say fighting, it can mean anything from bum fights to
okay, fair,
to MMA to boxing.
I mean, this okay. That's fair. That's fair. This is boxing of a sort. Jake Paul will have boxing gloves on. Mike Tyson will presumably have boxing gloves on. They'll be in a ring. There'll be a referee. This is not part of the word WBF. This is not a heavyweight bout. This is not a belt bout. This doesn't count, is what I'm saying. This is the boxing equivalent of the Formula One racers golfing with the PGA folks.
You know what you're describing, Tom? You're describing the opening to Rocky III, in which Hulk Hogan is taking on Mr. T.
Yeah, this is there's a name for that, and I'm blanking on the name, but it's a, you know, I don't want to say it's a fun fight, but it's like it's a
showcase. It's a showcase.
It's a showcase. They're just doing it for the names. Like
Right.
Mike Tyson is not, you know, he's great. I'm sure he's in decent shape for his age, but he hasn't been in prime fighting shape for a couple of decades.
Exhibition match. Thank you very much, W. Scottus 1.
Exhibition. Thank you, W. Scottus 1. Perfect. Mike Tyson's 57 though, so he's not like he shouldn't be in the ring at all. He's not like a 70-year-old man. Jake Paul isn't a professional boxer, but he's been doing this. He's been fighting people. He's been going into rings and doing boxing. So yeah, this is an exhibition match. This is just for the lulz, right? It's like Jake Paul has a big following. All his fans are going to watch. Mike Tyson has a big following. A lot of people who are fans of Mike Tyson are going to watch. And then there's going to be folks like us who maybe aren't a fan of either one of them particularly, but we might be curious.
There's also a narrative layer on top of that, which when I think of Mike Tyson now, the most recent thing that I think of is how well reviewed his one-man show was, in which he tells the tragic tale of the loss of his child getting strangled on a treadmill and what have you. And all of a sudden, it tickles the right amount of confusion in my mind, where it's like, who is the most powerful? You know, old media versus new media, old man versus young man. You know,
yeah.
It's actually a fine story, I think.
Yeah, and it fits right in with Netflix's live sports strategy, right? The live sports strategy has been, let's not try to pay too much money for an established league. Let's just do things that people might be interested in. And the one league that they have paid for is WWE, World Wrestling. So this kind of falls right in line of like, yeah, let's do fun, attention grabbing sports, not pay the NFL, pay the NBA, etc.
Wait,
Brian,
yeah,
you know what that sound is?
it's our search for buried treasure. But I actually
it is, and you've been taking your daughter on the search for buried treasure. What have you been doing with Penny?
Okay. So this motivational speaker, Brian, incoming, right? My wife was like bummed out about, I don't know, something or other. But I was like, you know who you need to be? You need to be Brian Blessed. And she's like, who's that? And I'm like, what? And so I was like, hold on one moment. And so I went back, and then I tried to load up a video. Everything was broken. It took 45 minutes, and she was looking at her phone and like, oh, I knew this was going to happen. But I ended up buying or renting Flash Gordon, the Dino De Laurentiis, a masterpiece with the music by Queen, right? And all I wanted to do was show Bonnie that moment where Brian Blessed, with his big bearded face and his giant grin, and he's constantly laughing, and he goes, "Oh well, who wants to live forever? Dive!" And then the Hawkmen dive or whatever. I'm like, well, now I've rented this thing. What am I going to do with this? And so, and I was like, hey, Penny, you just turned 20. Have you ever seen Flash Gordon? And she's like, no. I was like, you want to watch Flash Gordon? So we watched Flash Gordon, and oh my God, is it dead simple storytelling? Is it dumb as hell? Is it gorgeous as can be? And yes, I was definitely inspired by the fact that the set designer from Flash Gordon was the same one who worked on David Lynch's Dune. Sorry, Alan Smithy's Dune. It was great to revisit. Skip the middle part, but outside of that, it was great. It's so silly and over the top. It was great. What about you?
We watched the Oscars, and we have a habit of enjoying the Oscars. We've watched it together almost every year. This year, we were both a little ambivalent, and dare I say, I was even less ambivalent than Eileen was. So we turned it on. It started early this year. It started an hour earlier than it usually does. And we just sort of decided, you know what, we'll just have it on while we make some food and play video games on our phone or whatever. And that was probably the right call. It was the best way to enjoy it. I will say the parts that I did pay attention to seemed a little more entertaining than usual, seemed a little less cringy and a little less like, hey, everybody, don't you love the Oscars? And more like, yeah, we know. But you know what? There's some great films here. And they did some nice things where they, brought out 5 previous Best Actor winners to introduce the Best Actor nominees, although that also felt like it took forever. They finished early, Brian. The Oscars never don't go overtime. They were stretching at the end. Like Jimmy Kimmel, who was hosting this year, was like, anybody have a speech they want to make? Like, we're under time.
Tom, here's a sentence I never expected to say in my entire life. Would you describe this year's Oscars as humble?
No, I wouldn't go that
far. Who wants to live forever? Dive!
But as close as the Oscars could get, yeah, maybe. Like they started off by bringing out crew, like production crew on stage and talking about the strike and stuff. So maybe a little chastened by the hard year and the strike and all of that. One of the things we've done historically on Cordkillers is look at how the streaming companies are doing. That didn't even seem like a story this year. Netflix and Apple combined for 32 nominations. It's not like they didn't have nominations. And Netflix was the only one who won an Oscar, which was for Wes Anderson's The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. That was a Best Live Action Short. And you would expect in previous years to be like, Netflix bets it all, but only takes home 1 trophy. I saw that headline on Engadget, and that was it. Nobody else ever. It's become normal. It's like, yeah, Netflix is a studio, Apple's a studio. They sometimes studios have really good years, like Universal did with Oppenheimer this year. Sometimes they don't.
How wild is it that the Oscars is pretty much a footnote today? We were talking before the show. My wife was bringing up stuff about the Oscars. And I was like, why would we talk about that? That's not.
and we talk about it every year, but we always talk about it as, oh, how did it relate to the streaming services? And we've gone through all the phases, right? Of like, ooh, a streaming service got an Oscar nomination? What? That's crazy. Netflix was the first, right? Then it was a streaming service won an Oscar. Then it was like multiple streaming services have nominations. Oh, could a streaming service win Best Picture? Now it's just like, we've moved past that. It's just normal. I feel like the Oscars are missing a beat by not making it easier to watch the Oscars. You have to have cable or a cable-like streaming service like YouTube TV or something in order to watch it.
That's the new story.
A lot of other award shows and the Super Bowl and stuff are available just on a streaming service without cable.
This is so meta. That's the new story, Tom, is like, why can't everybody without a cable or television have the Oscars on the screen?
Why is ABC not streaming it on Disney Plus?
If you have an
Disney
answer,
stream.
hit us up over at cordkillers@gmail.com.
Indeed. Brian, I'm real nervous, but I'm also real excited because I'm writing a nonfiction book for once.
Okay.
Things have to be true.
I do want to hear about this, but I'm sorry. Somebody, I'm on an email list, and somebody reached out to me personally and said, "Hey, would you like to help a friend promote a book?" And
okay, I understand.
This guy was like, "Look, it's easy to make stuff up when you're writing fiction, but when you're writing nonfiction, it's kind of a big deal. You have to do a lot of fact checking, and you need like legitimate people to raise their banners in your favor." I'm sorry, I got distracted. What was your thing?
I'm writing a nonfiction book called Synced: Understand Technology and Make It Work for You. And I need to get like 500 people to pre-order it so that we can make it happen. And you can do that at tomsnewbook.com.
Okay. Back to this other story. Do me a favor. Hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com. If you are willing to plant your flag and say, I will be there, and I want you to count how many people will be behind you if you want to support a nonfiction, excellent anthology of technology. I'm sorry, what was your thing, Tom?
It's just a nonfiction anthology of technology, taking my 25 years of technology experience and putting it in a book that you can pull down from your shelf whenever you want and benefit from my experience, Brian.
Okay, I'm not going to keep the bit going.
Look, we are 22% funded. And we're not moving this show until I'm 100% funded. So we're just going to stay right here.
You know what? Actually, I don't want to incentivize trouble, but it's like part of me wants to do a full-on like MDA telethon where it's like, we're going to not stop talking about cord killing until this thing is funded. How much do you need? How many banners do you need? Because
we're like 22%. That's 101 supporters. So multiply that by 5. It's close to 500. It kind of depends on what you buy. Like there's options to just get the book, of course, but you can also get a signed copy of the book, or you could get a question featured on Daily Tech News Show, or you could do a virtual hangout. There's different levels of support, and those different levels get you different things, as well as getting you the book, which I think that's the main attraction. So every little bit helps. Tom'sNewBook.com.
Tom, normally I'd let you get away with this, but I really want to know. Tell me a bit about the book, about what you're trying to convey. I know it's a a history, but oftentimes
it's not. It's. I mean, it has historical elements in it, but it's more of a manual.
Go on.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm not going to let you off the hook on this. We're going to take actual showtime to have this discussion. This is the kind of thing we would normally talk about on After Talk, but not today.
Okay. You've made me very uncomfortable, and I will try not to let it show as I pitch my book that I want people to support at tomsnewbook.com.
I can pull back if you want.
No, it's fine. I don't want to overstay our welcome on it. The short version is, if you know the podcast Know a Little More at knowalittlemore.com, I use that as a guide. It's like, you want to know about USB? Here's everything to know about USB. And it does have some history to it, but it's also like, here's how it works. Here's why it works this way. So it's information you can use at the moment to understand the world of technology around you.
So the way I like to think of this is like, imagine having Terminator vision, except for you see the story of all of your gizmos around you, right? It's like created by so-and-so, developed by blah, 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 this kind of thing. Okay, how many, where should people go, Tom?
Tom'sNewBook.com. That's where people should go. And just check it out. You can find out all about the book there, and hopefully be inspired to sign up and pre-order it. And hopefully this doesn't inspire you to have to go to the bathroom.
No. Go to tomsnewbook.com. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was me tickling at your ribs. I'm sorry.
Roku users found they had to agree to new terms of service to continue using their television. Most probably did just hit agree and keep going, but a few who didn't like the new terms found there was no way to say no and no way to continue to use their TVs if they didn't want to agree. One of the things that I think is making this go a little viral is the new terms include an agreement called informal dispute resolution. That means before you can sue Roku, you have to make a written complaint to Roku's lawyers and let them make a, quote, fair, fact-based offer of resolution to your problem. On the other hand, if you don't agree to terms to any piece of software, then they won't let you keep using it. So you kind of don't have a choice when you're presented with the terms of service. There's not a no button. There's just agree. Now, what you can do is apparently agree and then write a letter saying you would like to opt out to the terms of the informal dispute resolution. And Roku is legally bound to honor that, but there's no way for you to know that without hitting agree.
Okay.
I guess there's not no way. I just told you, but there's no way in that moment. Like, there's no easy way to tell.
So oftentimes on our show, I'll take one over the top position and you'll talk me down off the ledge. But I feel like for this story, I kind of want to stand side by side and really ask you, as a friend, Tom, is this a symptom? Like in the before times when there were only 3 broadcast networks, then you could legitimately say, no, we're going to sue you because where are we going to go? Somewhere else? And then things got hazy in the cable days, and then the internet happened or whatever. I feel conflicted, cordkillers@gmail.com, on this story, because it's easier than ever to just not use the whatever it is. And I don't know that I feel like this is a corporation wronging the little guy or something.
Well, imagine this. You've just sat down with Penny and you want to watch Flash, and your TV says, press agree to continue to watch. And you're like, okay, what am I agreeing to? And it's like, well, you could scroll through this very tiny screen, or you could just agree. And you, being Brian, decide, you know what, actually, I am going to read it. And you find out, it means that I give up the right to sue Roku in the future. Well, I don't like that on principle. I don't want to do that. Where do I say no? And there's no way to say no. And there's no way to tell in that moment whether you can opt out of it. You're probably just going to hit agree and not think about it again. But a lot of people, I think, are upset. They're like, so I can't use the television I paid for in that moment unless I agree to go through your dispute resolution system. And the law requires them to not force you to go through that. And they've made it very difficult for you to opt out of it.
This is not a counter argument, because I think we agree, but counter framing of this, cordkillers@gmail.com, might be, is this just another version of breaking the shrink wrap means you agree to the EULA?
No, because you've already bought the TV and you're using it. This is a TV
it's the same thing with the software, right?
No, but a software, when you shrink wrap.
Oh, got it.
It's just you've agreed,
like an update
and now I can start
to your
using,
book.
Yeah. This is an update happening on a TV you've been using just fine. And it's like, nope, got to hit agree. I mean, I'm torn on this too, Brian, because part of me is like, these terms of service
thank goodness, because I thought I was dumb because I'm like, I don't know how to feel about this.
I get, because part of me is like, yeah, these terms of service are always annoying and they all contain this and people say agree to them all the time and don't get upset. But there is something about like, no,
changing
you
the rules.
Cannot use the television you paid for unless you agree to our terms right now.
Television as a subscription or television as a service.
It's not the first one, right? There's that free TV we talked about before. Where,
Tom, I think maybe I could count on one hand the number of times I've been this conflicted on this program about what is the obvious way to go.
Yeah, in principle, it's wrong. You should give people a way to say no. And it is also kind of wrong to say, we won't let you use your television. Like, it would be one thing if they're like, well, you can't use the Roku OS anymore, so your TV tuner works, but that's it, right? But it's nothing. You cannot do anything but press agree. It's the only choice they give you.
I am not a lawyer, but as I understand it, the standard is the reasonable man. Would a reasonable person expect upon buying a television to be able to use the television? And I feel like this does violate that standard.
Ambassador Domo points out that we run into this all the time. We're like, technically, if you don't agree to the terms of service of your washing machine software, you can't continue to use it. But it just doesn't. I don't know. I think it's the way Netflix or Roku implemented this, where it's like front and center, first thing when you turn on the TV, you cannot go any farther.
Yeah,
no grace period.
It feels a little bit like maybe technically it's correct, but it feels like you're doing it to a toddler, where it's like, would you like a candy? Well, by unwrapping the candy wrapper, you are agreeing to the following. Yeah. Like, technically, you're right, but it doesn't seem cool.
This definitely is a cordkillers@gmail.com situation. Let us know where you stand on this, especially if you've run into it, but even if you haven't. Max is joining Netflix and Disney and cracking down on password sharing. Smart move, Max. Let Netflix take most of the heat, Disney take some, and everyone will be too tired to be mad at you. Max says accounts might be disabled, and no word on if they're going to give you add-ons like Netflix did to, add out-of-house family members or not.
This one feels to me like a story of like, they were always, again, like the previous story, they were always technically entitled to this property, but new norms are shifting and we're less and less surprised and it stings less and less.
Yeah, feels right. Sling TV is letting customers play free arcade games while watching live TV content. So you can get things like Tetris, Wheel of Fortune, Solitaire Clash, Poker Online, etc. Right now, it only works on the Amazon Fire TV or the Android TV, but they say they will add support for more devices in the coming months.
I ain't gonna die in this hill, but this one feels like solving. I don't know. It's picture in picture after VHS was in vogue. It feels just whatever the solution is they're trying to do. It feels like the problem is not here now.
Please stay, is I think what the problem is.
Yes, exactly.
Regarding Marvel fatigue, Disney CEO Bob Iger said, a lot of people think it's fatigue. It's not audience fatigue. They want great films. And if you build it great, they will come. And there are countless examples of that. We've not been that public about it, but we've killed a few projects already that we just didn't feel were strong enough.
That's a weird move, right? Is bragging about how many babies you've aborted.
I feel like what he's saying is fans have been complaining that Marvel movies aren't good enough. That's the real problem. It's not fatigue with superhero movies. If our movies were good enough, no one would have fatigue. Like, he's kind of parroting what a lot of fans have been saying.
Yeah, but also I do, and maybe this is something we'll do in after talk, but it's like I'm increasingly of the opinion, given that it's been 20, 30 years, that maybe there is something to the idea that the superhero movie is just the new Western. You know, the idea
it's just a genre.
Yeah, it's like, and eventually everyone gets a little bit like, not tired of it, not angry at it, but just like it doesn't hit
saturated.
The dopamine, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those kind of genres go in and out of style. Like Westerns haven't been, very prominent lately. I know there's a couple of Westerns coming out. It'll be interesting to see if it recaptures the zeitgeist because people haven't had a lot of Westerns. Vampire movies go on a cycle, right? Where like there's a bunch of them, people love them, then they go out of style, and then they come back. Zombies the same way. And then go ahead.
I was going to ask sincerely, like, what does your gut say? Like, how do you personally feel about it?
About Marvel fatigue?
Yeah.
I'm with Iger. I think it's because I think there is a little more fatigue than maybe he's admitting because there have been so many superhero movies, but that just means the bar is raised for how good the superhero movie has to be. But if you make it good enough, people will enjoy it. And I think he's generally right.
Yeah. Also in the chat, they're asking, why did we not even mention the Deadpool movie coming up that looks to be quite good?
Well, that's a logical fallacy.
Okay,
we could have it's like, oh, so why didn't you mention this? Why, because we weren't talking about that. We were talking about Bob
also
Iger,
like, I will admit that it did not even occur to me to mention it because that's how dialed out on superhero movies I am.
Finally, Fox expects its combined sports streaming venture with Disney and Warner Brothers to hit $5 million subscribers in 5 years. Lachlan Murdoch, who runs Fox, says some talk around this being in the teens or 20 million subs. We don't think that's the case, but he thinks it's going to be in higher ranges of what people have talked about, potentially north of $50 a month. I think he's sandbagging a little. I think it should probably be more than 5 million subscribers. But the $50 a month sounds about right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to weigh in on this as somebody who's not really involved with sports, but also understands that all the sports contracts are dissolving, and so to me, this all feels like a pachinko machine at this point. Do you have any take on it?
No, that's it. That was my take.
Yeah.
5 million seems low and $50 seems right. Like,
yep.
Pretty much spot on. All right, let's get into the chatter. This is what we're hearing at cordkillers@gmail.com this week. A lot of folks suggesting what our next watch should be on the full experience on Spoilerin time after we finish up Cheers. If you're not paying attention on Spoilerin time, we've been doing an exercise that we originally called First Best Worst Last, but we've changed it to First Ultimate Loser Last for full. And Mike suggested either Frasier, which would be a natural progression from Cheers, or Scrubs. Says these shows are near and dear to my heart, so hearing y'all break them down would be awesome.
I think both of those are really good suggestions. I've seen a Frasier here or there. I don't think I've seen any of Scrubs, so I would love to have. By the way, I love the false authority that we get to assert by calling it the full experience.
Yes.
Even though it's like, we watched 4 episodes.
And by the way, Tassie Dave suggested First, Ultimate, Least, and Last. I like lowest maybe better than least, but Ultimate's really good. I like that.
Yeah. It also conveys everything. First, Ultimate, Least, I don't know, least is 1 syllable.
Yeah,
we'll figure
that's
it out.
True. John would recommend Stargate SG-1 as a great next full experience. First and last are easy, of course. Ultimate is a bit tricky because everyone has different criteria. His personal ultimate for SG1 would be season 4, episode 6, Window of Opportunity. That is what IMDb has listed as best. For the worst, the consensus seems to be season 1, episode 3, Emancipation. But yeah, I think we'll probably tend to go with the IMDb ratings for that.
Tom, in our 15 years of doing this program, in all of its incarnations, here's a sentence I never thought I would ever say. If you are a fan of Babylon 5, now is the best time to recommend it to us.
If we can get away with only watching 4 episodes, Brian is ready for you to recommend.
We're not only watching 4 episodes. Tom. We're not only watching 4 episodes. We're giving it the full experience.
Yes, if you'd like us to have the full experience, let us know. Cordkillers@gmail.com. We're going to get to that Cheers episode on Spoilerin time, so look for that in your feed. Patrons, get it early. Don't forget, our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com, and we are live at twitch.tv/Night Attack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you next time.